To Rod McKenzie, Director of Policy and Public Affairs at the Road Haulage Association. This is what he had to say.
Yeah, well, I think what it highlights is how tough it's been for businesses, especially small businesses, dealing with the aftermath of, Brexit. And really, this is the new normal. What we're seeing at Dover, these queues, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's not so bad. This is business as usual now. And I'm afraid we're going to have to get used to that. Delays possibly of 3 to 4 hours on bad days, with more checks and more regulation to come in July, with SPS checks, which are to do with meat and animal products and plants, and then further checks in September when biometric passport checks begin.
When the government's response to this is, as it was, we continue to ensure business gets the support it needs to trade effectively with Europe, your members, presumably some at least, bristle a bit at that.
I think small businesses have found it much more difficult than large businesses. Large businesses seem to have been able to tap into the support. They seem to be able to have created a structure internally to deal with the paperwork. But I think it's small businesses that suddenly see their costs rising and the red tape increasing. They're the ones that really struggle.
And is Dover and the physical flashpoint that is that the worst of it, or are there less visible problems?
I think there are problems wherever there is a border or a port, but Dover-Calais is obviously the short straits and the busiest port, so obviously it's borne the brunt of these delays that we've seen in recent days. And there's something about Dover that can't be helped, and it is that it is a small port with roads leading into it, not much extra room. And if I could take a kind of supermarket analogy here, if you're in a supermarket queue and the person in front of you suddenly gets out all their coupons and has them checked by the checkout person, then that's going to create a queue behind. Now, if you're in a supermarket, you can always open extra tills and get things moving. But you can't do that at Dover because it all funnels into this tiny space. And that's what we've had. We've had people getting the paperwork wrong, not understanding what needs to be done. That creates a delay, and then it backs up right up the road beyond.
This report also warns things could worsen this year as new import controls come in. You've alluded to them already. Is there any way this can be mitigated against, given both the evidence on the ground from people living it and from reports such as today's?
I think we've got to try and do something about this. We can't just say it's the new normal and not do anything. 4,000 extra checks coming in July with the SPS checks. So what would be sensible, for example, is some sort of veterinary agreement between the EU and the UK, who after all have very similar high standards of food, to basically set aside the SPS checks and just to wave traffic through. That would be a solution.
Well, it would be a solution, I suppose, from our side of the channel, but you can understand why politically the EU might say, made your bed, lie in it.
Absolutely, this is very difficult, and I'm not for a moment saying this is an easy negotiation, but I think it's in the EU's interests as well, because it's also their stuff that is being delayed and hampered. So it is in both the UK's and the EU's interest, we would argue, to actually get round the table, be sensible, give a bit of ground, and see what we can do to get the all-important trade flowing between the EU and the UK.
And do you, the association, keep in touch with EU hauliers as well and their representatives about this?
We do, and certainly similar stories from them as well. I mean, I think we're also noticing that trade is reducing a little bit at the moment, and that's been widely reported. And I hope that's not because Brits are not trading with the EU or vice versa, because it's in both of our interest to trade properly and freely, and that's why we need to make sure that the borders operate the best they possibly can be, given they can't be frictionless anymore because we've left the EU.
We certainly have. Rod McKenzie, Director of Policy and Public Affairs at the Road Haulage Association, giving us clearly an impression of the pressures that they